The morning sun cast long shadows across the shooting range at Fort Bragg as Chief Petty Officer Mark Johnson walked his usual inspection route. 20-3 years in the Navy SEILS had taught him to notice everything. But what caught his eye that Tuesday morning was unusual even by military standards. At the far end of the range, positioned behind a Barrett M80 to a 150 caliber rifle, was a figure that didn't match the typical profile of someone handling such powerful equipment. The shooter was small in stature, maybe 5'4" at most, with dark hair pulled back and a regulation bun. What struck Johnson immediately wasn't just her size compared to the massive rifle, but the way she handled it. The Barrett 50 cal weighs nearly 30 pounds and kicks like an angry mule. Yet, she positioned herself behind it with the confidence of someone who had done this thousands of times before. Johnson had seen plenty of soldiers and sailors struggle with the Barrett during training. The recoil could knock an unprepared shooter backward. The sound alone was enough to make veterans flinch. But this woman absorbed each shot like the rifle was an extension of her body. Her breathing was controlled. Her movements were precise. Between shots, she made tiny adjustments to her scope, with the kind of patience that separated amateurs from professionals. The targets she was engaging weren't the standard close-minus range practice sheets either. Johnson pulled out his binoculars and focused downrange. She was hitting targets at what looked like maximum effective range, possibly beyond. Each shot seemed to find its mark with mechanical precision. The chief had been around long enough to recognize exceptional marksmanship when he saw it. But this was something else entirely. What puzzled Johnson most was that he didn't recognize her.
What do you see?
Fort Bragg was large,
Nothing
but
yet.
the community of serious long-minus range shooters was small and tight-minus-knit. Everyone knew everyone, especially anyone skilled enough to handle a Barrett with this level of competence. Yet, here was someone who clearly belonged in that elite group, shooting alone and drawing no attention to herself. As he watched, she fired another round, even from his distance. Johnson could see the impact through his binoculars. Dead center. The mathematical precision of her shooting was unlike anything he had witnessed in his decades of military service.
Medical team is clear to proceed.
Each shot followed the same ritual. Breathe. Aim. Fire. Adjust if necessary. Repeat. But the adjustments were becoming smaller and smaller, suggesting she was zeroing in on something most shooters would consider impossible. The sound of approaching footsteps broke Johnson's concentration.
Good work today, Sarah.
Staff Sergeant Miller approached, following the chief's gaze toward the lone shooter. You see her? Too, Chief? Miller asked, his voice carrying a mix of curiosity and respect. She's been here since 500, same spot, same rifle,
Spreading about Sarah Chen.
same impossible shots. Johnson lowered his binoculars and
I've had
looked
the
at
privilege
Miller.
of working with some incredible
You know who
veterans
she
from
is?
SAS,
That's what I was
ESG-9,
hoping you could tell me,
and
Miller
Israeli
replied.
Special Forces.
I've been running this range for 8 years, and I've never seen shooting like that. She's not missing. Not even close misses. Every single shot is center mass, and she's engaging targets that most of our best snipers wouldn't even attempt. The two men continued watching as she prepared for another shot. The ritual was mesmerizing in its consistency. She checked wind conditions, adjusted for distance, controlled her breathing, squeezed the trigger with the kind of smooth follow minus through that took years to develop. The shot echoed across the range, and once again, the distant target showed a perfect hit. Johnson had trained some of the best marksmen in the military. He had worked alongside Army Delta Force snipers, Marine Scout snipers, and fellow SEILS who could make shots that seemed impossible to civilian eyes. But what he was witnessing transcended normal military marksmanship training. This woman wasn't just hitting targets. She was demonstrating a level of skill that suggested extensive combat experience. The mystery deepened when Johnson noticed her equipment. The rifle was clearly her own.
So tired of losing
not
people.
military issue. The scope was top minus of minus the minus line civilian gear. The kind that cost more than most soldiers made in months. Her shooting met, depot, and other accessories were all high minus end equipment that spoke of serious investment in the craft of long minus range shooting. This wasn't someone playing with military hardware. This was a professional. As the morning progressed, Johnson found himself unable to leave. Other personnel had begun to notice the exceptional shooting as well, but they maintained respectful distance. There was an unspoken understanding that they were witnessing something special. Interrupting would be inappropriate. The woman's shooting session lasted exactly 3 hours. When she finished, she methodically cleaned her equipment, packed everything with military precision, and prepared to leave. Johnson realized this might be his only opportunity to introduce himself and satisfy his growing curiosity about her identity and background. As she shouldered her rifle case and gathered her gear, Johnson made his decision. He had to know who she was, and where she had learned to shoot with such extraordinary skill. The professional in him recognized that level of marksmanship didn't develop overnight or through casual practice. It required dedication, training, and most likely real-world application under pressure. Walking toward her position, Johnson prepared to introduce himself, unaware that the conversation he was about to have would reveal a story that would challenge everything he thought he knew about military service and the hidden heroes among them. "Excuse me, yes," Johnson called out as he approached, his voice carrying the respectful tone of one professional addressing another. The woman turned. He immediately noticed her eyes. They were calm, alert, and held the kind of steady gaze he recognized in combat veterans. There was no surprise at being approached. No nervousness, just quiet assessment. She acknowledged with a slight nod, clearly recognizing his rank from his uniform. Her voice was soft, but carried an underlying confidence that matched her shooting ability. She stood relaxed but ready, the way someone stands when they're comfortable with themselves and their surroundings. "That was some impressive shooting," Johnson said, gesturing toward the targets downrange. "I've been watching military personnel train on this range for over a decade, and I've never seen accuracy like that with a Barrett. Mind if I ask where you learned to shoot?" A small smile crossed her face, the kind of smile that suggested she was used to this question. "My father started teaching me when I was 12, she replied, "but most of my experience came later, overseas." Johnson felt his interest spike. The way she said overseas carried weight. The same weight he heard in the voices of soldiers who had seen real combat. "Military service?" he asked. "Contract work." She answered simply. "Security operations in Afghanistan and Iraq. 7 years total." The pieces started falling into place for Johnson. Private military contractors, especially those working security details in combat zones, often developed exceptional skills out of necessity. But the level of precision he had witnessed suggested something more than standard security work. What kind of security operations required that level of long-range accuracy? He asked, his curiosity overcoming his usual professional reserve. She studied him for a moment, clearly deciding how much to share. "Overwatch positions," she finally said. "Protection details for high-value targets. Engineers working on infrastructure projects. Medical teams. Occasionally diplomatic personnel. My job was to identify threats before they became problems." Johnson nodded, understanding immediately.
Thank you, Captain.
Overwatch positions were among the most demanding roles in modern warfare. A sniper at Overwatch had to maintain constant vigilance, often for hours at a time, ready to engage targets at extreme ranges with no margin for error. Lives depended on their ability to make impossible shots under pressure. "How many deployments?" he asked. 11. She replied without hesitation, ranging from 4 to 18 months each. The number stunned Johnson. 11 deployments over 7 years meant she had spent the majority of that time in active combat zones. Most military snipers considered themselves experienced after 3 or 4 deployments. 11 deployments. As a contractor suggested, she had been in almost constant demand for her specialized skills. "The shooting I witnessed today," Johnson said carefully. "That level of precision at that range. That's not just training range accuracy. That's combat minus proven skill." Her expression grew more serious. "When you're responsible for protecting people who can't protect themselves, you learn to make every shot count. There's no such thing as close enough when someone's life depends on your accuracy." Johnson appreciated her directness. Too many people tried to downplay their combat experience or exaggerate it. She stated facts without emotion, the way professionals discuss their work. What ranges were you typically engaging targets at during those deployments? Varied by location and mission requirements, she answered. Urban environments, maybe 400 to 800 meters. Open terrain, sometimes out to 1,500 meters. The longest confirmed shot I made was 3,247 meters. Johnson felt his breath catch. 247 meters, over 2 miles. The longest confirmed sniper kill in military history was barely longer than that.
Glad to be here, Chief.
And those records were held by some of the most elite military snipers in the world. For a contractor working alone or with minimal support to achieve that kind of range was nearly impossible. 3,247 meters, he repeated, making sure he had heard correctly. That's over 2 miles. What were the conditions? Afghanistan,
Now, reading
the
microclimates is
1018th,
all about the subtle
mountain
indicators
environment,
around you.
clear day,
Trees, dust,
minimal
and hidden
wind.
heat shimmer.
I was providing overwatch for a medical team that had been called to treat civilians in a remote village. Intelligence indicated possible Taliban sniper activity
You
in
learn
the
a lot
area.
doing high-altitude
Her
missions.
voice remained steady, professional, as if she were briefing a mission
Your
rather
actual
than
combat
recounting
experience
what was likely
far
one of the
outweighs
most difficult
any
shots
textbook I've
ever
read in
made by
sniper school.
anyone. The target? Johnson asked. Enemy sniper positioned
listen
on
to
a
the
ridge
noise.
overlooking the village. He had already taken shots at the medical team. Rajnavisor showed 3,247 meters. I had
your
about
adaptive
15 minutes to
skills
calculate
under stress
trajectory,
are truly
account for
impressive.
altitude, wind drift, and atmospheric conditions. One shot. No opportunity for correction. Johnson knew enough about long-range shooting to
and
understand the
improvisation
complexity
are
of what
key.
she was
Never
describing.
forget that.
At that distance,
That if
factors
working
like
with
the
Mahmoud,
Earth's rotation
you
became
learn that
significant.
without effective
Bullet drop would
spotters
be
and
measured in
communication,
dozens of feet.
the mission can
Wind drift
easily
could
fail.
push a shot off target by hundreds of yards. Temperature,
Your calmness
humidity,
really echoes
and
the
air
tenor of
pressure
combat
all
measures.
affected trajectory. Making that
Fatigue,
calculation
fear,
and
and
execution under
chaos
combat
have shaped
stress
me
was
into
beyond
the
the
adaptive
capability
trainer
of
I am
most
today.
trained military snipers.
Very
Confirmed kill?
impressive work, Ranger.
He asked. The medical team completed their
We could use
mission
your
without
expertise.
further interference. She replied, which Johnson understood was her way of confirming the shot without being graphic about it. Standing there in the California sun, Johnson realized he was talking to someone whose combat record likely exceeded that of many legendary military
Her
snipers.
methods could save
Yet
our
she
operators'
carried
lives.
herself with quiet modesty, showing none of the bravado that sometimes accompanied such achievements. What brings you to Fort Bragg? He asked. Are you
Wait, I
looking to
got
get back
focused.
into contract work?
Your training
She shook her
effectively
head.
bridges the gap
I'm done with
between classroom
deployments.
instruction
Lost
and
too many
real-world battlefield
friends.
scenarios.
Seeing too
Combat
much.
does not wait for
I'm
perfect
trying to figure out
conditions.
what comes next.
Adaptability is survival.
There was a weariness in her voice that Johnson recognized from other combat veterans struggling with the
We
transition to
need you back.
civilian life.
Official consultant
Have
and
you
trainer,
considered
starting next
training
week.
others? Sharing your skills with
So we're
military
talking about
personnel?
putting stress into
Her
the
eyes brightened
individual
slightly
so
at
that
the
when
suggestion.
they're performing under pressure, they can
I
still
thought
make
about
that
it,
very
but
precise
I'm not
shot.
sure the military would be interested in learning from a
Most
civilian
military ranges
contractor.
rarely
Johnson
teach
almost
you.
laughed at that. With your track record, trust me, there would be plenty of interest. Johnson extended his hand. I'm Chief Petty Officer Mark Johnson, Naval Special Warfare Development Group. The woman's
that was
eyebrows
impressive.
raised slightly at the mention of EVGRU,
Unbelievable.
the elite SEIL Team 6
Mastering
unit.
that heart rate
And you are?
recovery and
There,
getting that
Chen.
under control
She
is
replied,
paramount.
shaking his hand with a firm grip. Former Army Ranger, then contractor.
Your drills are exceptional,
Currently
Sarah.
unemployed and trying
You
to figure
demonstrate
out
incredible
civilian life.
combat endurance.
Former Army Ranger explained some of it, Johnson said with a grin. But not the level of precision I witnessed today. That goes well beyond standard military training. How did you end up in contract work? Sarah shouldered her rifle case and began walking
That
toward
was
the parking
impressive, Sarah.
area. Johnson falling into
I was
step
laying in a
beside her.
prone,
After my Army
and my
enlistment
bipod
ended,
snapped
I
off.
wasn't ready for civilian life. A friend who was already contracting suggested I apply with his company.
Your real-world
They needed
fixes
someone
are
with sniper
invaluable
qualifications
lessons
for
all of us.
security details in Iraq. And you went from Army minus trained marksman to record minus setting sniper. How exactly? Johnson asked. Sarah was quiet for several steps. Necessity and
This
survival,
scenario
she
mirrors
finally
urban
said.
combat perfectly.
My first deployment, I was assigned to protect a construction crew rebuilding a school
You're
outside
looking to time
Fallujah.
your shots
Third
with
day
those
on
little
site,
lulls in
we
the
started
chaos.
taking fire from a building about 800 meters away. My spotter
Your
called the
precision
range.
timing could
I made the
absolutely be a
shot.
game changer.
Threat eliminated. Word gets around fast in that community. Johnson nodded. In combat zones, reputation was everything. Good snipers were in constant demand because they could solve problems that no amount of conventional firepower could handle efficiently. After that
Your
first
ability to
confirmed
function in
kill,
low light
I started
great.
getting requests for more challenging assignments.
Perfection
Longer
belongs to
ranges,
ranges.
more complex
Survival
scenarios,
belongs to
higher
battlefield
minus value
adaptation.
protectees. Each mission taught me something new about long minus
Right
range
now.
shooting in real minus world conditions.
You really
Who was
proved all the
training
skeptics
you?
wrong today, Sarah.
Developing those skills beyond basic Army sniper school. Trial by fire mostly, Sarah admitted. I was lucky to work with some incredibly experienced people. From a
Master
British
Chief.
S, X-GSG-9, retired Israeli Special Forces. The contractor world attracts people with serious
Contractors were
backgrounds,
the improvisers.
and most are willing to share
ones
knowledge
that
if
had
you
to
prove
get
you
it
can
done
handle it.
without
They
the
reached her
luxury of
vehicle,
backup
a
teams.
modest pickup truck with a secure rifle case mounted in the bed. Sarah loaded her equipment with the same methodical
Your drill
precision
mimics
she had shown
unforgiving
during
commands of
shooting.
the contractor world.
Everything had its place. Everything was secured properly. Tell me about that 247-meter shot, Johnson said.
Kit that if
Walk
we
me
go
through
in
the
there-
setup. Hera leaned
It
against her
definitely
truck,
prepares
clearly
soldiers
comfortable
for the
discussing the
unpredictable
technical
nature of
aspects of her
battlefield
work.
targets.
The
Hours
medical
without
team was
rest,
treating
keeping
children who had been
precision
injured in a
intact.
Taliban attack on their school. Intelligence suggested the Taliban had positioned snipers to target anyone providing aid. My job was to identify and eliminate those threats before they could interfere with the medical mission. How long did you have to prepare? About 2 hours from initial setup to target identification. I positioned myself on a ridge that gave me
Public
sight
without
lines
training.
to several
The
potential
realism
sniper
of your
hides.
training is something
Had my
troops
spotter with
rarely
me, a
experience.
former British
Set a new standard
SAS
here.
sergeant named Mahmoud.
Push
He
them
was
to their
running
breaking point.
calculations while I was setting up
Then you teach
equipment
them how
and
to
studying
recover.
wind patterns. Johnson knew that successful extreme range shooting was as much about planning and calculation
Resilience under exhaustion,
as it was about
that's the real
marksmanship
edge.
skill. What kind of calculation process for a shot like that? Everything matters at that distance, Sarah explained. Bullet drop at 3,247
Colonel, what
meters
trades
with
do you
my
have at your
load
resume?
was approximately
Your
847
methods
inches.
replicate the chaos
That's
of
over
combat
70
accurately.
feet. Wind was variable, mostly crosswind from the east at about 8 to 12 knots, which meant lateral drift of roughly 95 inches. Had to account for altitude compensation.
It's about good in.
Temperature effects on
It's about
powder
courage
burn.
under fire, not just
Even the
technique.
Coriolis effect from Earth's rotation. The technical details impressed Johnson. Few people understood the complexity of extreme-range ballistics, even among military
What we
snipers.
need right now
Sarah
with
was
these young
discussing
soldiers
factors that most
is
shooters
a
never even
real
considered.
experience.
How long from target identification to shot? Yes. Mahmoud spotted the target through his scope. Enemy sniper was setting up in what looked like a prepared position.
All right.
We had maybe 3 minutes before he would be
All
ready
right,
to
we're
engage the
in
medical
front of
team below.
Okay.
I had already done most of my environmental
So you are able to make
calculations,
accurate
so it was
estimations,
just a matter of
even
final range
considering
confirmation
factors
and
like
wind
Coriolis
check.
effect.
Sarah paused, her expression growing more serious.
Remember to
The
breathe
hardest
and stay
part
focused.
wasn't the technical aspects. It was knowing that if I missed, people were going to die. The medical team had 4 doctors and 6 medics working on injured children. They were completely exposed, totally dependent on me to eliminate the threat. Pressure shooting,
endurance-focused
Johnson
sniper
observed.
work.
No second chances. Lives on the line. Exactly. That's what separated contract work from training range shooting. Every shot mattered because real people's lives
It's a
depended on
critical
the
element for
outcome.
realistic combat
You
training.
learn to perform under that
I
kind of
agree.
pressure,
The fog
or you don't
simulation
survive
is
long in that business.
vital.
Johnson was beginning to
Because when you're
understand
on
how
Overwatch,
Sarah had
you
developed
don't
such
trust anybody
extraordinary
else.
skills.
It's on you.
Military snipers
You have
typically
one
worked
shot
in
to save a
teams with
bunch of
extensive
people.
support, backup, and multiple opportunities to engage targets. Contractors often worked with minimal support in situations where there was only one chance to
5,
succeed.
4, 3,
After you
2,
made the shot,
1.
how did you confirm the kill? Mahmoud maintained observation while I prepared for possible follow-minus-up shots. Target went down immediately. No movement after impact. The medical team completed their mission without further interference. Later, intelligence confirmed we had eliminated a note Taliban sniper with multiple kills against coalition forces. Johnson shook his head in amazement. Most military snipers would consider a 1,000-meter combat shot a career highlight. You made a shot more than 3 times that distance under combat stress. Sarah smiled slightly. That was actually my 3rd longest confirmed kill. The record just happened to be the one that got documented properly. In contractor work, a lot of what happens doesn't make it into official reports. 3rd longest? Johnson couldn't hide his surprise. What were the other 2? The longest was actually 314 meters. But it was never officially confirmed because it happened during a classified operation. The second was 3,198 meters.
The night drills reveal more
But that
about
was a
mental
joint
toughness
operation
than
with
skill.
British forces. And they classified the after-minus action report. Johnson realized he was talking to someone who had not only made 1 record minus-setting
All right, I
shot,
admit it.
but
I
potentially
underestimated
3
contractors
shots that
before.
exceeded the longest
You're good.
confirmed kills in military history. Yet, she discussed these achievements with the same manner minus that tone most people use to describe their daily commute. Kara, Johnson said slowly, I think you might be underselling yourself. What you're describing puts you in conversation with the best military snipers in history. Have you ever considered that your skills might be exactly what some of our advanced units could use? Sarah
Your
looked
focus on the
thoughtful,
physiology of
but shook her
performance is
head.
something that is
I
critically
appreciate
missing
that,
from our
Chief, but
current
I'm
training.
done with that life. 7 years of deployments, watching friends die, taking lives. I'm ready for something different. Johnson respected her
Such
position,
precision
but
control is
pressed
rare.
gently.
It is truly invaluable.
What if it wasn't about
Thank you,
going
Sergeant.
back to combat? What if it was about training others? Teaching them skills that could save their lives and the lives of the people they're protecting? I've thought about that,
You've got an
Sarah
impressive
admitted.
ability to
But
prepare
most
soldiers
military
for
training
chaos.
programs have strict protocols, established curriculums. I learned it through unconventional methods in unconventional
This adjustment right
situations.
here is crucial.
I'm
for
not sure how
compensating
well
for the
that would
crosswinds.
translate to formal instruction. Sometimes unconventional is exactly
Not many
what's needed,
shooters, even elite
Johnson
ones,
said.
practice at this level
Our
of
advanced
difficulty.
training
I
programs
took
are
a
always looking for real
3,247
world
meter
experience.
shot to
You've operated in
protect
conditions
our
and
medics who
scenarios
were
that
under
most
pressure.
military personnel never encounter.
What you did out there
That
today
knowledge is invaluable.
rivals
Sarah
some of
was
the
quiet
greatest
for a
sniper
moment,
records in history.
clearly considering the idea.
The most
What kind of
important
training
thing is to
programs are you
stay
thinking
calm
about?
under pressure.
SCAL Sniper School. For one, Marine Corps Scout Sniper Program.
Mindset training
Special
is
operations
just as
units that
critical
need to
as
understand
marksmanship.
extreme
I
range
agree.
shooting in complex environments. Your combat experience
It's
would
a
give
mental
credibility
reset
that
drill
classroom
that helps you
instructors can't
regain
provide.
focus quickly
And you
after
think
you've
they'd be
missed a shot.
interested in learning from a contractor? Johnson laughed. Sarah, military snipers
This type
dream
of
about
training
making the
will
kinds
allow
of
you to
shots you made
maintain mental
routinely.
clarity in
The
face
source of the
chaos.
knowledge matters
That's
less
true.
than the effectiveness of the
In
techniques.
these extreme conditions,
If you can't
hydration
teach
is
someone
not
to be
just
more
about
accurate,
comfort.
more
It is about
effective at protecting
maintaining
their
your
teammates,
focus and
the
accuracy.
military doesn't care where you learn it. Sarah seemed to be warm into the idea. I did enjoy the training aspects of contract work. Some of the younger contractors I
Training
worked with
must
had excellent
break
basic
comfort
skills,
zones to build
but lacked real
adaptability.
world
Glad you
application
a fan of
knowledge.
Mystic.
Teaching them how to adapt their training to combat conditions was
Sarah's
rewarding.
combat realism. Sarah's
I'd made the
combat
difference in their
realism fills
performance.
critical gaps in our military
Johnson
training.
asked, understanding that every shot in combat is different from training range conditions. Sarah explained, range shooting is about consistency and repetition.
You are ready
Combat
to
shooting
instruct
is
the
about
finest
adaptation
units
and
in the world.
improvisation. Weather changes. Target behavior
Thank
is
you, sir.
unpredictable.
And
Equipment
it is
might
that
malfunction.
after-action review,
Time
that
pressure is constant.
AAR,
Johnson
that you have to
nodded.
use as a
This was
feedback
exactly the kind of insight that could
That's what I love
benefit
about you, that
military
focus
training
on the
programs.
lessons learned cycle.
How did you teach
Thank
them
you,
to
Master
handle
Chief.
those variables? Stress inoculation training, Sarah said. I would create scenarios that forced them to make accurate shots under artificially induced stress. Time limits. Physical exhaustion. Simulated equipment failures.
This drill
Changing
is
environmental
brutally realistic.
conditions. The goal was to make them comfortable
Mahmoud
being
trusted me with
uncomfortable.
his life, and I trusted him
Give
with
me
mine.
an example. Sarah
That
thought for a
bond is
moment.
unbreakable.
One exercise I
But
developed
for
required the
like
shooter
us,
to
it gets
complete a physical fitness
Teamwork
test,
is a critical part
then
that
immediately
often
move
gets
to a shooting
neglected when
position
people
and
go through
engage
sniper school.
targets at varying ranges with a time limit. No opportunity to recover from the exertion. No time to perfectly stabilize equipment. They had to learn to control their breathing and heart rate while still maintaining
But it
accuracy.
is critical.
That's brilliant, Johnson said. Most training programs treat physical fitness and marksmanship as separate skills, but in combat, they're always connected. Exactly. Another
Climate
exercise
adversity
involved
training
shooting in
builds
full
grit.
gear after carrying equipment over difficult terrain. The goal was to simulate the fatigue and equipment
whether
burden
you
of
are
real
on a
operations.
rooftop
A lot
or
of
in a
shooters
window.
who were excellent under controlled conditions struggled when they had to perform after physical stress. Johnson was
urban
becoming
drills are
more
frighteningly
convinced that
real.
Sarah's experience could revolutionize aspects of military sniper training. What about environmental
You need to distinguish
factors?
between
How did you teach
combatant
adaptation to
and
different
non-combatants.
conditions? Field expedient methods for dealing with unexpected challenges, Sarah replied. What do you do when your bipod breaks in the middle of a mission? How do you maintain accuracy when wind conditions change every few minutes? How do you engage targets when your primary scope malfunctions? And the answers? Improvisation based on solid fundamental principles. If your bipod
Lives
breaks,
saved.
use your pack or
Remember,
available terrain
adaptability in
features.
combat isn't just about
If
gear.
wind
It's
is
about controlling
variable,
your stress,
learn to read
maintaining situational
microclimate
awareness, and
indicators and time
improvising
your
with what you
shots
have.
accordingly. If your scope
For real, as the
fails,
some say.
know how to use backup iron
Your
sights
battlefield
effectively at
realism
extended
surpasses
ranges.
anything we teach
Johnson
in the
realized that
academy.
Sarah's approach to training emphasized problem-solving and adaptability
My
rather than
painful
rigid
past
adherence to
Now
established
protect
procedures.
future warriors.
This was exactly what special operations units needed. Sarah,
You've come a
I want to make
long
you an
way.
offer. Johnson
Thank you,
said,
Chief.
I'd like to arrange for you to demonstrate your methods to some of our training
It's about
cadre.
consistency,
Nothing
about
formal
repeating
at
those
first.
drills until
Just an
that
opportunity
muscle
to show
memory
what you can
takes
do and how
over.
you teach it. Sarah looked interested but cautious. What would that
Your
involve?
consistency in
A
training
day or two
builds
at our advanced
reliability
training
under
facility.
chaos.
You'd work with some of our most experienced instructors and demonstrate your training methods. If they're impressed, which I'm confident they will be, we could discuss more formal
Is that what they
involvement.
know?
No commitment to long-term
It is
military
rare we train
involvement?
with elevated
Sarah
vitals.
asked.
That's true.
None at all. This
And
would be
you
contract
just have
instruction
to
work.
adapt
Civilian
to the
basis.
situation that you are in
You'd maintain
to
complete
accomplish
control
the
over your
mission.
schedule and level of involvement. Think of it as consulting rather than employment. Sarah extended her hand to Johnson. Chief, I think I'd like to
which is the
explore
key
that
to
opportunity.
pretty much all
When would you want to
contracting
set this
missions,
up?
especially when you are out
Johnson
in the
shook
middle
her
of nowhere.
hand, smiling broadly.
Your
How about next week? I'll make some
Your
calls.
experiences
Set
embody
up a
lessons
demonstration session.
manuals cannot capture.
I think you're going to be surprised at how
Every
interested people are in
millisecond
learning
can
from
literally
you.
mean the
As they
difference
parted
between life
ways,
and
Johnson felt excited about the possibilities. Sarah's combination of exceptional skill, combat experience, and teaching ability could benefit countless military personnel. More importantly, it might help her find a sense of purpose and belonging that many combat veterans struggle to achieve in civilian life. Sarah drove away from Fort Bragg with mixed emotions. The conversation with Johnson had stirred feelings she thought she had put
Discipline
behind her.
means precision
Maybe
under
there was a way
chaos.
to use her
It is
experiences
built
for
through
something positive.
repetition and
Something
realism.
that helped people rather than taking
The
lives.
lessons learned in the field
Maybe
are
the
critical
transition from
for our
combat to
soldiers.
civilian life didn't have to mean abandoning everything she
completely
had
agree,
learned and
Sarah.
accomplished. 1 week later, Sarah found herself at the Naval Special Warfare Center, driving through security checkpoints that brought back memories of military
right
bases
thing.
around the world.
That's a
Johnson
timeless
had
message,
arranged for
Sarah.
her to demonstrate her
Survival
training
that
methods to a
demands
select group of
adaptability.
instructors from various special
Exactly.
operations units. The pressure
Once a
felt
shadow,
familiar yet different from combat
I'm here,
situations. The
teacher
demonstration was
shaping
scheduled at a
warriors.
specialized training facility that could accommodate long-range shooting up to 2,000 meters. Sarah had requested specific conditions for her presentation: variable weather, time constraints, and equipment limitations that would mirror real-world
Welcome to the
operational
team, Ranger.
challenges.
We're honored to have you
Johnson
here.
met her
Thank
at
you,
the
Master
facility
Chief. I'm
entrance.
ready to get to work.
Ready for this? He asked. Noting her calm demeanor despite the significance of the opportunity. As ready as anyone can be, Sarah replied, shouldering her equipment back. Who will I be working with today? Some impressive people, Johnson said as they walked toward the range. Master Chief Thompson
of
from
all those I
SCIL
protected.
Team 2.
And dedicate this teaching to them.
Staff Sergeant Martinez from Marine Force Recon.
Your
Captain
methods
Williams
can
from Army
transform
Special Forces.
our sniper
And
skills.
Master Sergeant Davis from Air Force Special Operations. All experienced instructors. All skeptical about civilian training methods. Sarah smiled at that. Good. Skeptical instructors ask
reframed
harder
how
questions
I
and pay
view
closer attention.
sniper
If I
development.
can convince them the methods have real value. A group of military instructors was waiting
called
at
me
the range
Ghost for a
facility.
reason.
Their body language
But now,
suggesting polite
it's about
interest
building,
mixed with professional
not
doubt.
breaking.
Sarah had encountered
Your
this
sacrifice
attitude
is a
before when
testament
working
to
with
the
new
strength
military
and spirit
units
of our
overseas.
It is
Respect had to be
forging new
earned through
generations.
demonstrated competence.
Thank
Johnson made introductions, and Sarah immediately noticed the careful way each instructor evaluated her. They were seeing a small woman with civilian
Papers will be
clothes
ready
and
by the end of
equipment,
next week.
comparing
Understood.
that image against their preconceptions about military grade marksmanship instruction. Gentlemen, Sarah began. I understand you might have questions about learning training methods from a contractor. I had the same reaction when I first started working with non-military personnel overseas. But combat has a way of teaching you that good ideas come from many sources,
After years
and the
of
only
violence,
thing that matters is what
she
works under
finally
pressure.
found peace.
Master Chief Thompson spoke first. Johnson tells us you made some exceptional shots during your
You carry both
contracting
the
years,
scars and the wisdom
but
that
shooting
soldiers
ability
truly
and
need.
teaching ability are different skills. What makes you think you can improve our training programs? I don't know that I can. Sarah replied honestly. What I can do is share methods that proved effective in real
You know,
combat
you really
situations
made
and let
me
you evaluate
rethink
whether they
my
have
view of
value for your
contractors.
programs. If they
Combat
don't add anything
experience is a
useful,
heavy
you've
teacher.
only lost today.
Not a badge
If
you
they
wear
do
lightly.
help, maybe some of your students benefit. The directness of
Thank you
her
for
answer
that.
seemed to
Thank you
improve the
for
group's
bringing that
attention
realism
level.
to our training
These were
process.
professionals who
honor
appreciated
to
straight talk
contribute.
over sales presentations. What's your approach to long-range marksmanship training? Asked Captain Williams. Traditional training focuses on perfecting technique under controlled conditions. Sarah explained. That's important for building fundamental skills, but combat rarely provides controlled conditions. My approach is to teach adaptation methods that allow accurate shooting when everything goes wrong, such
This new
as
path will
Master
save
Sergeant
more
Davis
lives
asked,
than any single
equipment
shot.
failures, time pressure, physical exhaustion, environmental
This chapter
extremes,
is for those who
target
never
behavior
return.
that doesn't match expectations. I teach shooters to maintain effectiveness when their perfect training scenario falls apart. Sarah walked over to her equipment case and began setting up her rifle.